this is something I've been doing for many years to bring in extra money to help raise these cattle and for people in need and stuff. Been doing it for about 25 years. I custom make fishing tackle. I pour all the jigs myself. I buy all the hooks right from the hook manufacturers in bulk by the thousands, and I make custom jigs using powder coat paints, and I guarantee them that they will not chip. Now this mold here, I'm doing an order for a guy for 100 3/8 ounce bullet jigs, and this mold here is not a production mold, so 3 are 1/2 inch bullet jigs and another 3 are 3/8 ounce. These aren't a very popular jig, but they've been getting more and more popular over the years that I've been doing them. But you can't get a production mold, and to get into a spin casting machine you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars. So like I poured probably, I'm going to say a couple million jigs over the years. I do wire spinners, I do mono spinners, I do bass rigs, all kinds of stuff like that, and then just pour it out in there like that, and you open it up, and you just take my little picky here, and there's that little head on the bottom I snip off with the snippers after when it's cooled down, and then I take my Dremel and I put a drum sander on it and everything sand down, and sand the burr off after I snip them all, and then I paint them to whatever colors the customer wants. And they're very highly sought after, that being that so many people have got to know my product, and that they don't end up with the tackle blocks full of paint by the time they get to their hot fishing hole, because these powder paints, they're baked in an oven and they just don't chip. Like I have to use a Dremel with a dental drill bit in my Dremel in order to drill the attachment eye out where you attach your line onto. That's how hard the paint is, because you can't even drill it with a regular drill bit. And for what I'm pouring here right now, for these 3/8 ounce, custom order 100 of them, so that's $65. That's 65 cents a piece for the 3/8 ounce ones, powder coated and ready to fish. My pot's not pouring quite right here. Must be some crud buildup in the nozzle there. And yeah. You know, and there's so much talk about lead poisoning this, lead poisoning that. Lead is non-toxic under 800 degrees. And I have spent days in here, weeks in here, pouring at a time, hundreds of pounds of jigs, and the lead comes to me from the Bell telephone people, from when they have to cut open a joint on their fiber optic cables and stuff like that, and they have to use new lead to make the new pocket and fill it with they install this they make the lead bubble thing, and then they install this valve stem into the lead casting around the telephone junction on the fiber optic, and then they use this valve stem core to pressurize the lead casing with CO2 to keep any moisture out. And when they have to cut them open to do repairs and stuff, they can't reuse it. They have to use fresh lead. So the Bell Telephone guys, they drop it off to me, and because they know I make the tackle and they buy tackle from me, and I give them a bit of a break on the pricing, because they basically supply me with thousands and thousands of pounds of lead. And then I get, you know, when they demolished 2 of the hospitals in Thunder Bay, I got all the lead out of the walls from their X-ray rooms. But anyway, get back to that. You know, people say, "Oh, lead's toxic, lead's blah blah blah." I've been using it, like I say, for 35 years or more, and days and days at a time. Because I usually have 100 pounds of every jig style poured up ahead of time. And lead is not toxic until it reaches a temperature of 800 degrees. Then it starts giving off arsenic and all the bad stuff. But here we're only running around 450, 500 degrees when we're melting it here, so it's safe. And I got an exhaust fan running in here, and the door is open. If it was 40 below zero outside and windy, the door wouldn't be open. But and we just keep pouring like this. I'm a little bit slow here because this is probably the first time I poured in 2 years, because like I say, I usually pour up and I have 100 pounds or more of each jig in stock, and I just so happen to be out of these 3/8 ounce bullet jigs, and I just so happen to be out of 1/4 ounce stand-up jigs that I have an order for as well. I was only able to fill half the order for another customer. He wanted 200 of them, and I was only able to get him 100 because I only had about 103 left poured up that I can find. I was sure I had more, but I have to find the hooks, because I had a little shop in town for a while, and everything got packed up, and I'm not really sure where people put stuff, and they packed up for me in August of 2016 when I closed it up. It was something I started for my son, hoping that he would take interest in it and get involved in it, and because he's the type of person that the courts gave my first ex-wife day-to-day care and control of my son, and said it was in the best interest of the child. Well, she basically lived on welfare all her life, and still to this day, and he's got this attitude at 37 years old that money comes in the mail. And yeah, he came to the shop once in a while, and sometimes he'd come regularly for a little while, and then he'd disappear and be on a big drunk and everything else, and basically making nothing for himself. You know, he's on welfare like his mother, and works under the table for this bar, you know, bringing beer up from the basement and stocking the beer coolers and taking the empties back downstairs and stuff like that, and unloading the beer truck. And so I tried to open this in town, because I tried to give him some responsibility, because he doesn't know any responsibility. You know, even I spent thousands of dollars in counseling when he was 12 years old, when he finally came, 13 years old, when he finally came to live with me. But the counselors couldn't help him because he wouldn't cooperate. And so for 3 years I tried to shop in town. I had it in his name and everything else. And tried to give him the responsibility because he had a really good job at Safeway's in the bakery shop, and they started an apprenticeship for him to be a baker. Well, they kept giving him warnings because he was always showing up late to work and not bathing half the time and not showing up at all. And so after about 5 pink slips given to him, they fired him. So this apprenticeship that he was getting, which would have been fantastic if he would have finished it, he just basically flushed it down the toilet. And he don't seem to care one bit about it, you know, but yet he'll brag, and you know how drunk he was on Facebook. He'll brag about it, how drunk he was the night before, and how he was buying everybody in the bar drinks. Well, how's he doing that? I know exactly how he's doing it. Because in the shop we had in town, and we had live bait and everything else, and I was writing checks out to trappers for $600-700 a week for bait. But our accounting software for sales is only showing like a couple $100 in sales and bait, and that was only because they were either by credit card or by debit. So he was pocketing all the money that was cash, and he was going down the tubes, and then he wasn't showing up, you know, for work and stuff like that, and I was stuck there 7 days a week myself trying to run the place. And I finally got fed up, and I told him, you either start taking the responsibility on here you're supposed to have, or get the hell out, you know, and I'm going to shut the place down. Well, that's what I ended up doing. I ended up shutting it down because I wasn't going to play that game anymore. And it's sad, but like we were selling marine products and for boats and doing, you know, repairs on trailers and stuff like that. I was trying to teach him all that stuff, but he wanted nothing to do with it. And I just was unplugging this here, so now it's flowing faster. Now it's flowing too slow. Now I've had to stop the leak, so you give it a twist with a screwdriver. And so I shut it down because like I just used to sit at home here after I broke my back, and I used to make fishing tackle. And when I couldn't get out of bed much, I started off making just mono spinners. Whoa, it's coming out so fast now that I'm overflowing it. And as I was able to move around, and I would start making wire spinners, sitting up at a table with my wire benders. I got all the good wire benders and everything, and until I was able to come out here and pour jigs out here in the shed. I could actually bring this in the house and do it, but since I live alone now, but I might this winter, because I see I'm getting quite low on quite a few of the jigs because we go through a lot of them. You know, people order hundreds at a time. You know, I sell 5-packs too, and you know, and they're all nicely packaged with their labels on them and everything else. And so when they order 100, I just put a label on what ounce they are and stuff. But the 5-packs all got my Romppai logo on them, and which is my other YouTube channel, just Romppai. And yeah. Let's see if this thing is still recording. Yeah, listen, the light is on, so it must be recording. So these are 3/8 ounce bullet jigs that I'm pouring. And I have about probably close to 40 molds for all the different ones. I make bottom bouncers. I make chain link sinkers. With the eighth ounce, quarter ounce, 3/8 ounce keel sinkers on the stainless steel ball chains. And I make these crescent sinkers that are like a bottom bouncer, but the lead bounces off the bottom of the lake. I do it in the wire. And I make all the wire forms for all my bottom bouncers and everything else. I have the big commercial benders for the heavy stainless steel wire. That's how fast the lead hardens. As fast as you can put the hooks in and pour it, you can pop them right out. And then it goes in liquid and it congeals right up in seconds. As fast as you can do it. Like I say, I'm a little bit slow here and my fingers aren't really working the best. But once I get better days and that, I can really fly through these things. And it doesn't help matter, I can only do 3 at a time in this mold. My big selling ones, like my bug eye jigs that I put really lifelike eyes on them. They're like a plastic transparent eye with either a black pupil with a red around it, or a chartreuse around it, or silver, or whatever colors, glow in the dark. Those I have in big production molds where I can pour a whole stack at a time. But I often thought about getting a spin casting machine, but for that, it's a lot of money, and I could have bought a used one there a few years ago for about $6,000. But you know, you still got to make all the molds out of this liquid rubber molding compound, and then you got to cut all the gates into it for the lead to run into it, and then you still have to place all the hooks into every single mold, just like I'm doing now. And the only thing that speeds it up is the pour of the lead, and I have to ask myself, you know, I have to place every single hook exactly in the right place and everything else in the mold, and it's like, you know, what's really the benefit to it, you know? Because I can pour several hundred in an hour once I get going at it, you know, and I have no other distractions, you know. Like you say, I haven't poured. This is the first pouring I've done in over 2 years, because I had so many poured up in bins, and I still have probably 300 pounds or more of the quarter-ounce bug eye jigs poured up, and round jigs and of every size. I got hundreds of pounds of those poured up yet, because we had so many, you know. In the wintertime when it's slower, when it's just ice fishing going on, and you know, the amount of people that go ice fishing is very small to the people that do open water fishing in the summertime, so it's, you know, you're not as busy in the summertime. Usually I can go all summer without having to pour any jigs at all, and I'll pour all winter, you know, and pour thousands and thousands and thousands of jigs, and I'm good to go. I was looking for my counter so I could keep track how many I was pouring, but I couldn't find it. couldn't find it for some reason. It's usually in my toolbox or hanging up here. But like I say, I haven't done any pouring since we had that little shop in town. And who knows where that got packed away. It was usually always kept in my toolbox in town. But my son might have robbed it on me, who knows. So that's how I do this, and someday we'll do a video of how we snip them and paint them and stuff like that, but I just thought for today that maybe it'd be interesting to see how else I make a little bit of cash on the farm here. And people will drive a long ways out here to get them because it's quality stuff, and it's like I use all good name brand hooks. I don't use any offshore junk. I really like the Daiichi hooks, which that's not what I'm pouring today, but I use the red Daiichi hooks for a lot of my really good fast moving jigs and wire spinners and mono spinners and stuff like that. I got every color spinner blade going in size 2, 3, and 4, and probably about 60% of the colors in the number 5s. And then I've got bigger ones in just the genuine silver and genuine 24 karat gold, and bigger spinner blades for making big musky spinners. And I tie bucktail jigs, and I tie bucktail 3-prong hooks right up to 9/0 for the Americans that come up here for fishing our big northerns up here, and they want these big bucktails, you know, black and green bucktail hair on them, and they go after these big alligator muskies. We don't care for them up here. Everybody says, "Oh, it's all how you clean it and make sure you get that stink gland out of the back end of them, the black stripe out of the back, and blah blah blah." Well, I've had them fillet them for me and cut them up, and I still find it too coarse of a fish and tasteless. It's like eating suckers. That's what I relate it to. There are freshwater gators. You know, we have our northern pike up here, and our pickerel, which Americans refer to our pickerel as walleyes, and we have our northern pike, which Americans refer to as just northerns or something like that. Can't remember now. And then they have for some reason they call the big monster pike, they call them muskies, but I don't know. To me they're all pike, and every fisherman up here, they call them all pike, but the Americans call them muskies, and they're just an older, much bigger fish, 6 feet long, or even bigger. We throw them back to the seagulls. Really flying out of there. that lid. Really watch. Okay, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I just thought I'd do a short video on that for you, and just here, I'll hang on, I'll show you. And then as this gets low in that pot, I have this other bigger pot, just a electric melting pot here, that I just take and I scoop the lead out of this one and pour it into this one. And then I take these lead ingots that I make, and you have to make darn sure that they're not wet, because boy, if they're at all wet, they'll blow up in your face. And put that in there, and see how it's bubbling, so that had a little bit of moisture on it. If it had a good sized drop of water on there, that thing would just blow up like poof, like a big volcano. And boy, does it burn you. And that's what I do. I just keep that cooking there, and otherwise if I added that big chunk of lead to this pot here, it would take, might as well go and have supper or something, because it'll take so long to heat this lead pot up to the temperature that I need again. And so that's what I do. I don't know if I got 100 in there yet or not, but anyway, that's how I do that, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you found it interesting. If not, I'm sorry. I'll maybe do one later on of how they're painted and how they're baked. Anyway, take care and have a great day on this Wednesday, September the 5th, 2018.